All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to Diabetes Talk. I'm your host, Charlie O'Connell. We are broadcasting live from the GLUCOSEZONE studio right here in New Haven, Connecticut. I want to thank everybody who just joined me for that awesome level 3 leg workout. You guys did so awesome with that. And I want to do a huge shout out to YouTube, to Facebook, and of course, guys, I see you on Instagram. Guys, we are broadcasting all over the world on multiple different social media platforms, including in the GLUCOSEZONE app. I want to do a huge shout out to a couple people right now. Ingrid, I see you in the app. I see you kicking butt. Claudette, okay, great job today. We've got a ton of people. We have so many people logging in right now, guys, that I can't even keep track of it. So we're going to get everybody's name up on the board here. Sue, Nakia, I see you guys on Instagram. WJC, is that Jay Cox? I see you, Jay. It's awesome to have you here. All right. And guys, today's topic is a really important topic. This is about acknowledging and recognizing that diabetes can really get you down, that diabetes doesn't fight fair, and that nobody asks for diabetes. Okay? I know you didn't ask for diabetes. I know you didn't want this fight. Okay? But you know what? We're going to talk about positive ways to, regardless of all of that, be happy, okay? Live a joyous life and basically reach our fitness goals and reach our life goals in spite of whatever diabetes might throw at us, okay? So we have got, and thank you very much, Laura, for putting this up. We've got Maria on Facebook. Maria, great to see you here. Claudette, Melissa, Jackie, Jeanette, my boob, Donnie Ray, and Marisol on Facebook, plus everybody here on Instagram. And you know what? We're going to try a cool new feature here, guys. We're going to try and see if we've got an Instagram request to be live in the video. So let's see what happens here. All right. Okay, guys. So let's start with the obvious. Diabetes sucks. Let's just put that right out there, okay? Diabetes is a downer and a bummer. It never chills. That's one of the things about diabetes that can be incredibly annoying and frustrating is diabetes, it doesn't have any chill, okay? And those moments when you want it to chill, it seems it's like that's when it's buzzing around your head the most, okay? So when you're dealing with a condition like that where you really need to have some tools, okay? You really need to have some coping mechanisms so that it doesn't completely screw you up emotionally, mentally, intellectually, spiritually. All of those things are at risk when diabetes, okay, starts to really beat on you. So, and I'm talking, of course, guys, from personal experience, okay? So I have gone through the 4 stages of diabetes and something called DADA, okay? And what DADA stands for is denial, anger, depression, and acceptance, all right? And those are the 4 stages of grief that are associated with diabetes. Now, for me personally, my denial, I've had type 1 diabetes now for 21 years, and I spent probably the first 4 years in denial, okay? And I did a combination of completely emotionally detaching from the results of my diabetes. And what I mean by that is, by emotionally detaching and not caring about my diabetes, I was able to, that's how I coped with my diabetes being totally out of control. And I didn't know what to do about it. I did not know what to do when I was on the football field and my glucose level was 290. I just didn't know what to do. And so what I did was I emotionally detached from that number. All right? And that is a very, very common thing that is a coping mechanism. Right? When you don't care about something, then the results don't matter to you. Then I went through the anger stage where I was angry. I didn't even really know who I was angry at. I didn't really have anybody to be angry at. So in my case, my anger manifested itself in a spiritual way, where I felt extremely resentful toward God because I felt like I had been afflicted with something that I didn't deserve. And that is not a positive place to be. When you have a beef or a resentment with God, you are really, really not in a good place, because God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. Okay? It's just simple, straight up facts. Okay? So when you have anger and resentment in your heart, and that anger and resentment is directed toward your spiritual relationship, it's impossible to have spirituality. And that's not a good place to be. Okay? So I have been there. I understand exactly what that feels like. Then there's the depression piece. And the depression piece is kind of what we're tonight's topic, right? Is basically when diabetes has just got you down. And you're sick of you can't be in denial anymore. You're tired of being angry and resentful, and now basically you just feel like giving up, right? And that's not a positive place to be. That affects you mentally, that affects you spiritually, that affects you emotionally. And everybody's been there. And I'll make a comment today. I had a really, really tough day today with my diabetes. And everybody here at GLUCOSEZONE noticed it. And what was actually really cool was everybody noticed it here, but nobody said anything in a negative way. It was the exact opposite. It was basically very supportive of the challenge that I was going through. And we've talked about diabetes in the workplace. I'm in a very fortunate place right now where GLUCOSEZONE is a company of people that are dedicated to helping people with diabetes. They understand it very, very intimately. Even though not everybody here at GLUCOSEZONE does have diabetes, they understand it. They understand how it can affect your mood. They understand how fluctuations in your hormones and in your glucose levels can be really, really challenging. And it's an acknowledgement. Okay, that's really ultimately what this is about. Once you acknowledge it, then you're able to accept it and move on. All right? So, step number one for not letting diabetes get you down is acknowledging and recognizing that diabetes can be incredibly hard. Diabetes doesn't fight fair, and it doesn't chill. That's number one. Okay? The second piece along those lines is sometimes you can do everything right, you can do everything that you're supposed to do, and it still doesn't work the way that it's supposed to. And it's incredibly important to acknowledge that. Not all diabetes medications work the way they're supposed to. Period. And it's impossible to explain that to somebody who doesn't have diabetes. In fact, getting back to kind of what we were talking about with people who have work here at GLUCOSEZONE, we have had some incredible moments where we've had professional people, professional healthcare people, once they actually come work here, they'll make the comment, they'll be like, wow, I didn't understand that the pump doesn't work like that. I didn't understand that test meters can have a 20% error rate. Just think about that for a second. the device that you're using to basically calculate your medications and make your decisions has an acknowledged and FDA approved 20% error rate. So what that means is if you test your blood sugar and it says it's 200, it actually could be 160 or it could be 240. So it's very, very important that we're acknowledging these things. All right? Because that's the first step here in actually having a positive solution. Now, the second step is once we've acknowledged these things, once we've kind of put diabetes into its place, right, and have the full picture of what's going on, now we have to cope with it. Because just acknowledging doesn't make you feel better. Acknowledgement is the first step. So let's actually talk about some coping mechanisms. Okay? The first one is learning how to go with the flow and be comfortable with change. And being comfortable with change takes practice. But I'm going to break it down for you guys right now. Okay? There is a saying, healthy things grow. Growing things change. Changing things challenge. So I want you to let that sink in for a second. Anytime you are making changes, even if it's a positive change, it can be very challenging and difficult because for some reason we get stuck in places that suck, but because we know them, we're uncomfortable changing out of them. So remember that. Healthy things grow. Growing things change, and changing things challenge. It's one of the most important things that you can hold on to, that you can gravitate to when you're going through change. Is understanding that change is a healthy thing. Growth is a healthy thing. What's not, and this is one of the craziest, most paradoxical things about diabetes, staying the same is not healthy. Say that again. Staying the same is not healthy. Healthy things grow. Growing things change. So just get your karma, get your chi, get whatever you want to call it, okay? Get that part of you in tune with the fact that healthy things change. Okay? All right. Now, once you've kind of done all that, now let's talk about some actual techniques. So, deep breaths, practicing deep breaths, and basically, I kind of joke around. I'm a big Seinfeld fan. I like to say serenity now, okay? But basically, those are actually very good coping mechanisms. So you take a big deep breath, you exhale, right? You just let out whatever it is that's got you all tied up, you let it out, okay? The next thing is definitely exercise. So exercise replaces stress, and it gives you something that ultimately always has a positive outcome. When you exercise, you fundamentally take on a challenge and you overcome that challenge. Okay? So getting consistent exercise is really one of the most important things you can do when diabetes gets you down. In fact, tonight is a good example. I had a really rough diabetes day. I'm feeling so much better now that I've exercised with you guys. All right? The other thing, now this is the hard one. This is the one that I'm particularly struggling with right now, is getting enough sleep. So sleep, the importance of sleep, especially as relates to diabetes, is crucial. If you are basically struggling with your diabetes and you're having unwanted fluctuations, or just basically your body is not behaving or reacting to the medications that that's how they usually react, you really need to examine your sleep, okay? Because lack of sleep can cause all kinds of stress-induced hormones, okay, that impact your glucose levels. All right. The next thing, okay, is purposefully eating healthy foods when you feel stressed out. So I'm going to give you a good example, all right? Perfect example. I was so stressed out today. I was so frustrated with my diabetes all morning, and it got to be lunchtime, and our CTO here, Andrew, who also has type 1 diabetes, I said, hey, do you want to go get some lunch, right? And he was like, yeah. And I said, where do you want to go get lunch? He said, where do you want to go? And I said, well, I could either do tacos or salad. Now, tacos is stress eating for me. I love tacos. And I guarantee you, if we had gone and gotten tacos, I would have crushed like the most tacos you've ever seen. And my blood sugar would have just had a nuclear explosion. But Andrew said, you know what? I'm feeling more like a salad. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Me too. And we ended up and Andrew loves tacos too. We ended up going and getting salad, and it had such a positive impact on my mood, on my diabetes, on how I felt. It was like a life-changing salad, right? That's a classic example of being conscious of eating healthy when you're feeling stressed. All right? All right, now we've got a ton of great comments going right now. So I want to recognize Tiffany, who's joined us on Instagram, and what Tiffany shared, Tiffany says she's the first to say she always doubted that exercise could be a positive thing when it comes to diabetes, but now exercise has become her stress reliever. And that's so awesome. And Tiffany, thank you for sharing that, because the reality is not everybody loves the gym. Not everybody loves exercise, okay? And Tiffany is a great example of somebody who has progressed through all of those stages and now has been able to turn her whole attitude around about exercise and sees it as a positive thing. It's not stressing her out, it's stress relief, okay? That's awesome, awesome job, okay? All right, now Nakia is on there on Instagram. Nakia is talking about the FitScript salad. So, guys, I do have to confess, we do have an amazing salad recipe. And actually, you know what, Nakia, thank you for bringing this up. We're going to do a diabetes talk about the FitScript salad, because it really is one of the best things you've ever tasted, and it's absolutely delicious and totally healthy. I want to encourage you guys, when you make a homemade salad, okay, the more fresh fruits and vegetables you can put in it, the more nuts, the more berries, basically the better it's going to taste. All right? But you know what? We're going to do a whole thing about the salad. All right. Let me stop right there. We've got a ton of great comments coming in through. So I want to address these, okay? And I want to say what's up to Tara, who's joined us on Facebook, okay? I know Tara has been going through some ups and downs. Tara is a total diabetes warrior. What I love about Tara is she shows up and basically she's willing to let the world know how she feels. That is an indication of strength, okay? When you can share how you're feeling, all right? Now, let me talk about what Ying just brought up on Facebook, and I appreciate this, Ying. So what Ying just shared is, this has been a rough winter for me, right? I'm intelligent enough to understand the facts, but I'm just personally and emotionally drained. I totally hear you, Ying. I'm so glad that you phrased it like that, because for people that are successful, that are smart, that are intelligent, that have a high intellect, diabetes can be so emotionally draining because guess what? Diabetes doesn't fight fair. And this is where I see this all the time. People get so frustrated because they want to follow the book, right? They basically want to know what's going on. They are willing to make the changes. They are willing to follow the recommendations. And then, bam, what does diabetes do? It doesn't behave the way that it's supposed to. Or the medications don't behave the way they're supposed to. And that's then when if you're in that situation, you can just totally get emotionally. It's like an emotional low blow. All right? So I hear you, Ying. That's such an important thing that you brought up. And that really impacts parents of children living with diabetes. Because we see this so much. We see parents come in who are so frustrated because they're following everything. These moms, we see moms come into the GlucoSezone. They have logbook, hundreds of pages of logbooks. They're following the guidelines to an absolute T, and they're getting nowhere. And it's so emotionally draining. So the first thing here, guys, is to recognize, right, that diabetes doesn't fight fair, number one. Number two, the experts don't have all the answers. Very important. The experts don't have all the answers. You ultimately need to trust your instinct, okay, in making decisions about you. All right. Now, next question that came in is from Marisol, who asked a great question. Marisol said, what made me go on the continuous glucose monitor? All right, so that is a great question, Marisol. Thank you for asking it. So what she's talking about, guys, is I recently went to a CGM. I'm using a Freestyle Libra. And it's a great question because it's so relevant to this topic. So basically, I had resisted a continuous glucose monitor for years. And my resistance to the continuous glucose monitor basically revolved around two things. Number one, I had an issue with having something attached to my body. I just straight up had an issue with that. The second reason was because of the nature of the work that I do, I was exposed to the frustration of the devices not working the way that they say they're supposed to work. And again, this is so important to acknowledge that sometimes these devices, they just straight up don't work. And we would see it all the time of people coming into the GlucoSezone looking for advice and so frustrated with wearing these devices and the devices either not doing what they say they're going to do, or being inconsistent, or just straight up not working. So I was very sensitive to that. And what ended up happening was I was having a particularly tough week. This is going back about a month ago. I was having a particularly tough week with life. And my diabetes was like all over the place. And I had a random doctor's appointment with my endocrinologist. This is something that had been scheduled previously. And so I went in for the doctor's appointment. I shared with my doctor, who was a great, great doctor, this guy named Dr. Yavari. Actually, I want you to check him out because his website is beyondcare.net. He's got some phenomenal resources, but that's a side point. Dr. Yavari, I went to go see Dr. Yavari, and basically, Dr. Yavari, he heard my sad song, and then he said, Charlie, let me just put this thing on you. And it was, quite frankly, it was a moment of weakness for me. I just didn't have the strength to resist him anymore. And I said, fine. And within like 30 seconds, he had put this thing on me. It was just like, boom. And then he said, if you don't like it, you can take it off. And that is really literally exactly what happened. And I'm so appreciative now to Dr. Yavari because this device has certainly elevated my living ability with diabetes. And I'm going to give you the main reason why is it has reduced the amount of times that I need to prick my fingers, literally, that I need to draw blood from my fingers. And I had disconnected from that burden a long time ago emotionally. I had just accepted it. And that's one of the things when you're living with diabetes is there are certain things you just have to accept. So a long, long time ago, I had just accepted that drawing blood from my fingers on a 6 to 10 times a day was just part of life. And what happened was, all of a sudden I didn't have to do that. And I wasn't ready for the grief. I actually felt grieving when that happened. It was the strangest thing. When I put the CGM on, I woke up the next day and I realized that I didn't have to test my blood sugar 10 times a day. All of a sudden, I felt this huge burden lifted off of my shoulders, and then an immediate grieving for what I had to go through. And I sat there. It was actually really interesting. I called my mom up, and basically my mother, you know, she was so happy for me, and she said, you know, Charlie, I always felt so bad for you, but I never wanted to say anything because she knew there's nothing that I could do about it. So, you know, we very quickly figured out that in having type 1 diabetes for 21 years, I had drawn blood from my finger at least 45,000 times. That's a lot of times. Okay, that is just straight up a serious burden. And to have that burden lifted was a great thing. Now, does that mean that I never have to test my blood sugar again? No, that's not what that means. Because these devices are not perfect. But they certainly are a improvement. They represent an improvement for me. I just got back from a trip from Florida, guys. I was on the beach, I was in the pool, I was exercising, I was traveling, I was playing golf. I put this thing literally through the ringer, and it worked perfectly. There were no issues. So I have to say that this has been a very, very positive thing for me. All right? And I want to encourage you, if you haven't tried a CGM, for whatever your reason is, your reason can be like me, or basically you don't even know about it, I would recommend talking to your doctor about it. And there are 3 different CGMs. There's the one that I'm wearing, which is called the Freestyle Libre. There's something called a Dexcom, and then there's a Medtronic device. So all 3 are continuous glucose monitors. All 3 have slightly different features. I would really encourage you to check out, do research for yourself, figure out which one is the right one for you. All right? All right. Now, okay, so we've got a really great comment here coming in from YouTube from Claudette. And what Claudette says is, diabetes is a disease that affects everyone living with it, from young kids to old people, and everything for diabetes is so expensive. Imagine for people who cannot afford it, okay? And because of the expense that's associated with diabetes, they don't know how high their glucose levels are until they go to the doctors, all right? And Claudette, thank you so much for bringing up this incredibly important aspect to the frustration, the depression, and diabetes getting you down. Because on top of all that, everything I just talked about, then you associate hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month going to diabetes. And now this is actually, Claudette, you really, really nailed it. This can be something that, this could be like the straw that broke the camel's back. When you go to pick up your prescriptions and they're like, that'll be $175. And you're like, no, I have insurance. And they'll be like, yes, I know, that's your copay. And, you know, it can really, really test. Life is a test, okay? It's testing your patience, it's testing your nerves, it's testing your bank account, it's testing your financial stability. All of it's bullshit, okay? It really has that feeling of like, you know what? Screw this, okay? Screw this. You really, really can get you down, okay? And it's a great point that you brought up, Claudette. So the answer to that, guys, is two things. The first thing is there are resources out there that can help you get the diabetes medications, tools, and supplies that you need for lower cost. And as frustrating, as humbling, as maybe embarrassing as that may be, they're definitely worth taking advantage of. All right? And I want to encourage you to do it. And I've been there. And I'm going to do a little bit of a talk right now. I usually don't get very political, guys, in these talks, but I'm just going to drop something on you guys right now. Everybody deserves to have health care. Okay? Health care is a right, not a privilege. And if it wasn't for Obamacare, I would not have been able to start GLUCOSEZONE. Because guess why? I have type 1 diabetes. I was uninsured. I was unemployed. And I had no prospects for getting insurance because I had type 1 diabetes. And for 2 years before Obamacare happened, I was in that place of I had to humble myself and go down to the local healthcare clinic that was basically the place for people who were uninsured, did not have the means to get the things they need. I had to humble myself, and that's how I managed my type 1 diabetes for 2 years. And it exposed me, guys, to number one, the reality, okay, of life. And no matter where you are, no matter who you are, life is a funny way of cutting you down, okay, and humbling yourself. And number two, it exposed me to the incredible work and the incredible patience that healthcare workers who work in local public health clinics, the amazing work that they do, and they don't get enough credit for it because they deal with all kinds. They are the catch-all. They are basically the place where people like me who got crazy ideas, right? I'm a type 1 diabetic, I'm uninsured, and I want to start a company to help people with diabetes. Public health clinics are the catch-all for crazy people like me. And I'm so grateful and thankful to those clinics. And then when Obamacare kicked in, I was able to get insurance, and then I was able to launch GLUCOSEZONE. I just want you to think about that for a second. All right? All right, now, we've got a lot going on here. All right, so I want to address this from Instagram and from Louise, okay? So Louise, thank you for joining us, all right? And basically what Louise shares is, hi Charlie, last year I had eye surgery to get rid of a floater. It was supposed to, okay, but last week new ones came out. I feel really upset about it. What can I do to prevent depression? okay? So in other words, basically what Luis shared was that he had eye surgery to correct a problem, but the surgery itself didn't actually address the problem the way that he wanted to. In other words, he was having this surgery with the goal of improving eyesight, but there wasn't any improvement in eyesight. So Luis, thank you for bringing this up and for sharing honestly. This is one of the most frustrating, depressing, potentially depressing things that can happen, where you put yourself out there to have a solution, you do surgery, and then it doesn't happen, okay? So when these things occur, guys, there is only one solution. And what the solution is identifying what you have gratitude for in your life. Because resentment, depression, anger, and self-obsession cannot reside at the same time with gratitude and thankfulness. They are two emotions that cannot operate in the same space. You either have resentment or you have gratitude. You're either angry or you're either thankful. Okay? You're either hopeless or you're filled with joy and looking forward to the future. And so when you're in that really hard situation, which I appreciate, Louise, you sharing, because that's hard. You have to identify the things that you have gratitude for and you're thankful for. And I've been there, guys. I totally have been there. And I personally had to humble myself and acknowledge how good in life I have it. I had to acknowledge that for basically 99% of the world would kill to be in my position. I want you to think about that for a second. I really, really want you to think about that, because it's so easy to become self-obsessed with our problems. All I want you to do, I want you to think about your worst problem. Seriously. I want you to think about the thing that depresses you more than anything else, and then I want you to compare your life to a kid living in Syria right now. You can't do it. All of a sudden you feel embarrassed that you even had the audacity to feel bad about your situation. You're immediately able to acknowledge, oh my God, I have it better than I even deserve. So that, guys, it's a paradox of life. Life is a test. It's always testing you. Okay? And you know what, guys? Diabetes, it can get you down if you let it. But if you use some of these tools that we just talked about, if you're willing and able to acknowledge the things that you're thankful for and have gratitude for in your life, you're going to feel a lot better about yourself. You're going to feel a lot better about your situation. And lastly, if you can start thinking about somebody else, now you have taken that final step to feeling happy. Because when you start thinking about somebody else's problems and you start thinking about how can I be helpful to somebody else, now all of a sudden your problems are in the rear view mirror. Okay? And you've taken that incredibly important karmic step of a life that's about other people. And on that note, guys, we're going to stop. I've been dropping a lot of dimes on you tonight. Okay? I really, really appreciate all of the questions, all the feedback. You guys are an awesome, awesome group. I'm so humbled that this community is forming. I love you guys. And on that note, we are out of here. Thank you so much.